Sometimes one small moment changes everything. I used to think my best friend was just teasing me, that his words were nothing but a joke. But that one night, the look in his eyes told a story my heart wasn't ready to hear. They say real love doesn't need grand confessions. Sometimes, it hides in laughter, in silence, in the space between two people too afraid to admit what they already feel. This isn't just a story about friendship. It's about the moment you realize that the person who knows you best might also be the one your heart has been waiting for all along. So sit back, take a deep breath, because what started as a joke became something neither of us could walk away from. Cloud Red. Sometimes, love finds us in the places we least expect. This is a story about friendship, trust, and that thin, blurry line between simple affection and something deeper, something passionate, something real. I thought my best friend was joking when he teased me about being closer than just friends. I laughed it off, told him he was being ridiculous. But that night when he looked at me with eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before, I realized it wasn't a joke. And what happened next changed everything between us forever. Friendship is a strange thing. It grows quietly, almost without us noticing. Then one day you look back and realize just how much space that person has taken up in your life. For me, that person was Leo. We met during our sophomore year of college. He was the loud one, the guy who knew everyone at the party, who could charm professors into giving extensions and somehow convince total strangers to share their fries at midnight. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one, the observer. I noticed how people talked, remembered small details, and laughed softly instead of loudly. Despite our differences, we were drawn to each other. Late-night study sessions turned into long drives with no destination. Over time, we built something solid, a rhythm, a trust. Leo was the one I called when life felt too heavy, and I was the one he turned to when his confidence cracked. By the time we graduated, our bond felt unshakable, like family. That's why that Friday night caught me completely off guard. It was supposed to be just another easy, mindless evening. I showed up at his apartment carrying takeout boxes stacked high in my arms, the smell of burgers and fries filling the hallway before I even knocked. He opened the door with that familiar grin, messy brown hair in his eyes, an old hoodie and mismatched socks. Typical Leo, I teased. Delivery boy, my hero, he said dramatically, stepping aside. Pretty sure heroes get paid, I replied. You'll be compensated with beer and my eternal gratitude, he joked, already pulling 2 bottles from the fridge. We fell back into our usual rhythm, food, laughter, and a dumb comedy movie we'd seen a dozen times before. Leo sprawled across the couch, taking up more space than necessary while I sat upright, trying not to spill ketchup on his blanket. Halfway through the movie, as the laugh track echoed from the TV, Leo shifted, stretching out until his arm brushed against mine. He didn't move it. Neither did I. You ever think about the future? He asked suddenly, his tone casual but softer than usual. I glanced at him. What do you mean, like where we'll be in 10 years, married, single, still living in some tiny apartment together? He smiled, maybe, but if we're both still single by, I don't know, 35, let's make a pact. Pact? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, he said, grinning, that we'll end up together, you know, as backup. I froze, his words hung in the air like smoke. He was smiling, eyes playful, but there was something underneath it, something real. I forced a laugh and tossed a pillow at him. You're insane. He caught it easily, still smirking. I'm just saying, we already know each other's flaws. Why waste time dating strangers when we could just be each other's person? My chest tightened. Leo, I said lightly, you've had too much beer. Maybe, he shrugged, turning back to the TV, but he didn't laugh, didn't add another joke, and in that silence I realized my heart was racing. That night, after I left his apartment, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Leo's words replaying in my head. We could just be each other's person. I told myself it was a joke, that he didn't mean it. But the look in his eyes, that faint sadness behind his smile, wouldn't leave me. I kept replaying the moment, the brush of his arm, the way my skin tingled, the way my laugh had sounded forced even to me. Why did it bother me so much? Because deep down I already knew the truth. It wasn't a joke, and what terrified me most was realizing I didn't want it to be. The next morning, I dragged myself to the cafe where Leo and I always met for coffee on Saturdays. He was already there, sitting by the window, sipping his latte with that familiar smug expression. "You look like hell," he said as I sat down. "Didn't sleep much," I muttered. He grinned. "What, too busy dreaming about me?" I froze mid-sip. He said it casually like always, but my body betrayed me. Heat rushed to my face and I had to look away. He noticed. His grin faltered for just a second. I forced a laugh. "You wish." But inside something ached, because maybe he wasn't wrong. The rest of the day felt different. We went through our usual routine: grocery shopping, arguing over cereal brands, playing video games until our eyes blurred, but everything felt charged now. Every glance, every touch carried something unspoken. At one point, when his hand brushed mine as we both reached for the same controller, I flinched, not from discomfort but from the spark that shot through me. He noticed. He didn't say anything, but his smirk softened into something quieter, something I couldn't name. That night, as I stood by his door ready to leave, I hesitated. I wanted to ask him if he really meant what he'd said, but the words wouldn't come. So I just said, "See you tomorrow." He smiled, that familiar crooked smile, always. And for the first time in years, I realized I didn't know what always meant anymore. The week after Leo's joke felt different, subtle but undeniable. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that I was overthinking one random moment, but the truth was written in how my body reacted when he was near, how my chest tightened when his arm brushed mine, how my pulse quickened when I caught him looking at me a second too long. It was like I'd suddenly become hyper-aware of him, the sound of his laugh, the curve of his jaw, the warmth of his presence when he stood too close. Things I'd noticed 1,000 times before now carried weight. We were at his apartment that Wednesday evening, controllers in hand, locked in a fierce battle on the screen. Leo leaned forward, tongue pressed to the corner of his mouth in concentration. I tried to focus, but my eyes kept drifting to the way the TV light flickered across his face, the way his hoodie stretched over his shoulders, the way his lips moved when he muttered to himself. I'd been staring too long. He paused the game, turning toward me with a playful squint. "Dude, you're distracted." My throat tightened. "No, I'm not. You're just terrible at this game." He grinned, leaning back against the couch. Sure." Then his eyes lingered, steady, searching. The grin softened into something else, something that made my stomach twist. I quickly turned back to the screen, fumbling to restart the match, but my hands were trembling just enough for him to notice. The tension only grew as the week went on. On Friday night, we ordered pizza like we always did. When the delivery guy left, we sat cross-legged on the floor, eating straight from the box and arguing about toppings. Leo reached for the last slice at the same time I did. Our fingers brushed. It should have meant nothing, a tiny, meaningless touch, but the spark that shot through me was impossible to ignore. I froze, staring at our hands, too afraid to move. He didn't pull away either. His fingers lingered just a moment before he slowly picked up the slice. When I finally looked up, his eyes were on me, not teasing, not playful, just intense. My chest tightened. I quickly looked away, pretending to focus on my drink. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with something neither of us dared to name. That night, as the movie played in the background, everything between us felt different. Unspoken, fragile, real. The movie played softly in the background as Leo shifted closer on the couch. His knee brushed mine. At first I thought it was an accident, but he didn't move. I could feel the warmth of his body beside me, every nerve in me suddenly alive. And yet I stayed perfectly still. Because if I moved, if I acknowledged it, everything would change. After a long pause, he spoke. His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Be honest with me," he said. I turned startled. "About what?" He held my gaze. "Have you ever thought about it, about us?" The words hit me like a punch. My mouth went dry. "About what? What do you mean?" He didn't look away. His eyes were steady, open, vulnerable. "About being more than just friends." My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to laugh, to make a joke, to make the tension disappear, but I couldn't. His gaze was too real, too sincere. I opened my mouth, but the words tangled in my throat. "Leo," I whispered, but nothing else came out. The silence stretched between us. For a moment, I saw something flicker across his face, fear. Then he smirked, leaning back with a shrug. "Relax, man, I'm just messing with you." He grabbed the remote and unpaused the movie, eyes on the screen, but I knew he wasn't joking. And the terrifying part, neither was I. For the rest of the weekend, his words haunted me. "Have you ever thought about it?" The truth was I had. I just never admitted it, not even to myself. Because admitting it meant risking everything, our friendship, our history, the one person who knew me better than anyone else. But now that the question was out there, I couldn't bury it anymore. I caught myself watching him more closely, the way his laugh made his eyes crinkle, the way his hand rested on the back of the couch when we sat together, the way his scent lingered on my hoodie after I borrowed it. I hated how much I noticed. I hated how much I wanted. Sunday night came. As I walked home after another evening at his place, the city lights blurred around me. My thoughts were too loud, too restless. Was I reading too much into it? Was Leo serious? Or was I just desperate to find something that wasn't there? But deep down, I already knew the answer. There was something between us, something unspoken, something dangerous. And whether I liked it or not, it was growing stronger every day. The storm rolled in without warning. By evening, the sky had turned a bruised gray, thunder rumbling in the distance. I'd been at Leo's place all afternoon. He begged me to come over, claiming he needed moral support while reorganizing his apartment, which really meant I did most of the work while he sat on the floor making playlists and cracking jokes. By the time the rain started, the apartment looked cleaner, but my thoughts were chaos. "Looks like you're stuck here tonight," Leo said, peering out the window as lightning flashed. Sheets of rain slammed against the glass, wind howling between the buildings. I laughed softly, though my chest tightened at the thought. "I can drive in rain, it's not a big deal." Leo turned toward me, raising an eyebrow. "You seriously want to risk hydroplaning just because you don't want to hang out with me a little longer?" His tone was playful, but there was something quieter underneath, something almost hopeful. I hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, you win." "Good," he said with a grin, grabbing 2 blankets from the closet. "Slumber party it is." We ended up on the couch, wrapped in blankets, half watching a movie neither of us cared about. Outside, the storm raged, thunder shaking the windows, rain pounding like 1,000 tiny drums. But it wasn't the storm that had my attention. It was him. The way his shoulder pressed against mine beneath the blanket. The way his breath brushed my cheek when he leaned closer to whisper some sarcastic remark about the movie. The way his warmth made it impossible to focus on anything else. Every second felt charged. Every accidental touch set my thoughts spinning. Halfway through the film, the lights flickered, once, twice, and then the apartment went dark. The screen went black, the hum of the fridge faded. Silence filled the space, broken only by the roar of the storm outside. "Well," Leo said after a moment, his voice low in the dark. "Guess it's just us now." Something in his tone made my heart skip a beat. My chest ached with the weight of everything we weren't saying. The air between us was thick with memories, laughter, secrets, all the moments that led to this one. Finally, Leo broke the silence. "Do you ever think about that night?" he asked, his voice barely louder than the whisper of the wind. I didn't look at him right away. "Every day," I said quietly. He nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the water. "Me too. I keep replaying it in my head, wondering if it was real or just something that felt real because of the storm." I stopped walking. "It was real, Leo." He turned toward me, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "You're sure?" I smiled faintly. I've never been more sure of anything. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world around us seemed to fade, the sound of the river, the hum of the city, even the cold. It was just us. Then Leo reached for my hand, tentative at first, like he was afraid I might pull away. But I didn't. I laced my fingers through his, feeling that same electric rush I'd felt that night. He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders melting away. "You have no idea how long I've wanted this," he said softly. "I kept thinking I'd ruin everything if I told you." "You didn't ruin anything," I said. "You just made me realize what I was missing." He laughed quietly, that familiar, nervous laugh I'd always loved, and shook his head. "So what now?" I looked out at the water shimmering under the streetlights. "Now we stop pretending," I said. "No more running from what this is." He squeezed my hand, his thumb brushing lightly over my skin. "Then I guess this is the start of something new." I smiled, meeting his gaze. "Yeah, something real." The night stretched before us, quiet, endless, and full of promise. The river kept flowing, the city kept breathing, and somewhere in the middle of it all, two friends finally stopped being afraid of what they'd already become. And when the nights grew quiet, when it was just the two of us and the world outside had gone still, that's when everything felt most real. We didn't need words. The way his fingers traced small circles on my arm, the way his heartbeat steadied under my cheek, it said everything words couldn't. But love, even when it's right, comes with questions. Would the world understand? Would our friends see us the same way? Could we handle what came next? Some nights those fears crept in, whispering doubts. But then Leo would look at me, really look, and all of it would fade away. Because in that gaze there was no confusion, no pretending, only truth. And the truth was this: he loved me, and I loved him. Not in the loud, dramatic way movies show it, but quietly, steadily, like something that had always been there, waiting for us to finally see it. I used to think love was something that happened all at once, a lightning strike, a spark. But now I know it's more like a sunrise, slow, certain, inevitable. And when it finally rises, you wonder how you ever lived without its light. So no, Leo wasn't just my best friend anymore. He was my home. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to stay. And as we sat there, the city lights flickering like distant stars, I realized something simple but life-changing. Love doesn't always arrive with fireworks or grand confessions. Sometimes it's been sitting beside you all along, laughing at your jokes, sharing your silence, brushing your hand under a cafe table, just waiting for you to finally notice. Leo turned to me then, eyes filled with the same warmth that had once terrified me, and for the first time I didn't look away. Because this wasn't just a story about two friends who crossed a line. It was about finding the courage to stop pretending. To choose something real, even when the world might not understand. That night, under the quiet hum of the city, we didn't need any more promises. We just sat there, two hearts that had finally stopped running, knowing that whatever came next, we'd face it together. I used to think Leo's offer was just a joke. But it became the most beautiful truth of my life. He wasn't just my best friend, he was my home, my heart, my forever. And together we chose love, cloud red. Days turned into weeks, and somehow life felt different now. Leo and I didn't have all the answers, maybe we never would, but for the first time that didn't scare me. Because love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers hidden in late-night talks, quiet laughter, and the warmth of someone who truly sees you. I used to think Leo's teasing was just a joke. But it was. It was his way of saying what words never could, that somewhere between friendship and forever, we had already found each other. And as his fingers intertwined with mine, I realized love had always been there. We just needed the courage to call it what it was, red. If this story touched your heart, backhand index pointing right, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And make sure to subscribe for more stories like this. Because sometimes love finds us in the most unexpected places. Cloud sparkles.